A Werewolf Shifter Romance, written by Amelia Hart. Chapter 1. White Lies. The morning sun filtered through sheer curtains, painting patterns across Violet Hayes's face as she blinked awake. For a moment she forgot what day it was. Then reality crashed over her in a wave of nervous excitement that made her wolf stir restlessly beneath her skin. Today she was getting married. Violet sat up slowly, pressing a hand to her racing heart. 27 years of careful living, of being the responsible daughter, of doing everything right, had led to this moment. In 6 hours, she would walk down the aisle and become Luna to the Silver Pine Pack. She would bind her life to Cole Hartfield, the alpha who had pursued her with such focused intensity 3 years ago at that regional shifter conference. She could still remember that first meeting. She had been there representing her father, Theodore, who had been too ill to travel. Cole had approached her during the evening reception, his dark eyes fixed on her with an interest that made her skin flush. He had been charming, sophisticated, everything an alpha should be. When he asked for her contact information, she had given it without hesitation. Their courtship had been traditional, formal. Cole respected boundaries in a way that felt safe after a lifetime of watching her younger sister Scarlett chase excitement and drama. Where Scarlett was impulsive fire, Violet had always been steady earth. Their parents, Theodore and Claire, had made no secret of which daughter they preferred. Scarlett's beauty turned heads. Her confidence commanded rooms. Violet had learned early that being reliable was her value. 6 months ago, Cole had knelt before her in her parents' living room, with Theodore and Claire watching from the doorway. The proposal had been proper, witnessed, exactly as pack tradition demanded. Violet had said yes, because everything made sense. Cole was a good match. The alliance would strengthen both families. Love would come with time. That was what she had told herself every time doubt crept in during quiet moments. A knock on her bedroom door pulled Violet from her thoughts. Her mother, Claire, slipped inside, already dressed in a soft blue dress that complemented her graying hair. As an Omega, Claire had always carried a gentle presence that put others at ease. This morning, though, tension lined her features. "Good morning, sweetheart," Claire said, moving to sit on the edge of the bed. "How are you feeling?" "Nervous," Violet admitted. "Is that normal?" "Completely normal." Claire reached out to tuck a strand of Violet's long, chestnut-brown hair behind her ear. The gesture was tender, but something in her mother's eyes seemed distant. "Your father wanted me to remind you that the car will arrive at 9 to take you to the venue. Cole's family will already be there, setting up." Violet nodded. The wedding Ivy lifted a small Ziploc from her purse, the kind she used when she worked inventory at the clinic. "Marcella sent this over," she said, holding up a scrap of ripped lace. "She found it in her shop's trash this morning and thought you should see it." Violet's vision tunneled. The torn piece matched her ruined gown perfectly. Same scalloped edge, same beadwork pattern. "There's more," Ivy added softly. Security pulled the building's hallway feed. "Scarlett, you carried the garment bag in at 6:12 a.m., the day of the wedding, and walked out 10 minutes later without it." Scarlett's practiced poise wavered. Her mouth opened, then closed. "Say it," Violet whispered. "Say what you did." Scarlett looked anywhere but at her. "I didn't want you to look perfect," she said at last, voice cracking. "Not when I was the one he actually wanted. Was being held at a beautiful estate on neutral territory. A location chosen carefully to respect both packs' boundaries. Everything had been planned with political precision. Theodore had insisted on it. Her father's voice carried from somewhere downstairs, gruff and commanding as always. At 58, Theodore Hayes no longer held the beta title he had earned in his youth, but he still carried the authority of it. His influence in the shifter community remained strong, built on decades of strategic relationships. It was that influence Cole wanted. Violet understood that now, even if the knowledge stung. The arrangement made sense politically. Theodore's old pack needed protection from territory disputes. Cole's Silver Pine Pack needed the legitimacy that came from allying with a respected former Beta's family. Marriage had always been about more than love in their world. Claire stood, smoothing her dress. "I'll send Scarlett up to help you get ready. She's been so excited about today." After her mother left, Violet moved to the window. Outside, Autumn had turned the trees into blazes of gold and crimson. The sight should have calmed her. Instead, it reminded her how everything was changing, how nothing would be the same after today. Another knock, this one sharper. Scarlett entered without waiting for permission, her platinum blonde hair already styled to perfection, makeup flawless. At 25, she had mastered the art of commanding attention. Her blue eyes sparkled with an energy that Violet had never quite understood. "The bride awakens," Scarlett said, her voice bright. "Ready to get you into that gorgeous dress?" They made their way to the guest room where Violet's wedding gown hung, protected in its garment bag. Scarlett had insisted on keeping it separate, claiming the main room was too crowded with preparations. Violet had appreciated the gesture at the time. Scarlett unzipped the bag with a flourish. Then she screamed. Violet rushed forward, her heart hammering. The sound that escaped her own throat was something between a gasp and a sob. Her wedding dress, the gown she had spent months selecting, that had cost more than she wanted to think about, hung in shreds. Long tears ran through the delicate lace. Dark stains, wine perhaps, soaked into the silk. The bodice gaped open where seams had been violently ripped apart. "Oh my God," Scarlett breathed, pressing her perfectly manicured hand to her mouth. "Violet, I'm so sorry. I don't understand. How did this happen?" Violet reached out with shaking fingers to touch the ruined fabric. Her wolf surged forward, fury and distress tangling into something primitive. Someone had destroyed her dress. Someone had deliberately sabotaged her wedding day. Who would do this? Violet whispered. Scarlett's face had gone pale beneath her makeup. "I don't know. But we need to figure out what to do. The wedding is in 5 hours. Panic clawed at Violet's chest. She thought of the guests already traveling to the venue, of Cole's family preparing, of her father's carefully laid plans unraveling. "Eliza," Violet said suddenly. Cole's mother had never hidden her disapproval of the match. The Luna of Silverpine Pack had wanted her son to marry someone from a more prominent family, someone with stronger political connections. Violet had felt the weight of that judgment every time they met. But even as she voiced the suspicion, it felt wrong. Eliza was cold, yes, but this kind of petty cruelty didn't match the woman's character. Eliza wielded power through words and social maneuvering, not vandalism. "We can worry about who later," Scarlett said, pulling out her phone. "Right now we need to find you another dress. There's a boutique downtown, Marcella's. They handle emergency alterations for pack events. Let me call." Violet stood frozen as her sister made rapid phone calls, her voice shifting between pleading and commanding. The dress on the hanger seemed to mock her. She wanted to shift, to run, to escape this nightmare, but betas didn't run from problems. They solved them. 30 minutes later, they were in Scarlett's car, racing toward downtown. The boutique owner, a stern wolf named Marcella, was already pulling options when they arrived. "This one," Marcella said, holding up a simple ivory gown. "It's not what you had, but it will fit with minor adjustments. I can have it ready in 2 hours." The dress was beautiful in its simplicity, but it wasn't the gown Violet had chosen. It wasn't the dress she had imagined wearing when Cole saw her walking down the aisle. Still, she had no choice. "We'll take it," Violet said. The ceremony began precisely on time. Violet stood in the bridal suite of the estate, wearing a dress that didn't feel like hers, her hands trembling around a bouquet of white roses. Through the door, she could hear the string quartet playing, could sense the gathered guests from both packs waiting. Theodore appeared in the doorway, wearing his formal suit. His gray eyes swept over her, and something flickered in his expression. Disappointment, maybe, or calculation. "You look beautiful," he said, but the words felt automatic. "Did you make this happen, Dad?" The question escaped before Violet could stop it. The deal with Cole. "Is this really about protecting your old pack?" Theodore's jaw tightened. "This alliance secures our family's future. Cole's expansion into northern territories will include protection agreements for the packs I still have influence with. Yes, I arranged it. That's what fathers do. They ensure their children's futures. By trading me like a political bargaining chip, by giving you a position of power as Luna of an important pack, Theodore's voice hardened. Scarlet will never have this opportunity. You should be grateful. The words struck like a physical blow. Even now, even on her wedding day, everything came back to Scarlet. The daughter their parents actually wanted. The music changed. It was time. Violet walked down the aisle on her father's arm, seeing everything through a haze of suppressed emotion. The estate's garden had been transformed into something from a fairy tale. White flowers everywhere, silk ribbons, guests in their finest clothing. The Silverpine pack on one side, her family's friends, and Theodore's old connections on the other. And at the altar, Cole waited. He looked perfect in his black suit, his dark hair precisely styled, his posture radiating alpha authority. When his eyes met hers, Violet searched for warmth, for love, for anything that suggested this was more than a transaction. His expression remained neutral, professional. The ceremony proceeded. Violet heard herself making vows, felt Cole's hand, cool and firm, sliding a ring onto her finger. The officiant spoke about bonds and duty and pack unity. Nothing about love, nothing about choice. When Cole kissed her, it was brief, chaste, the kiss of two people fulfilling an obligation. The reception blurred together. Violet smiled until her face ached, accepted congratulations from wolves she barely knew, danced with her new husband while everyone watched. Cole's hand rested on her waist, maintaining exactly the proper distance. He spoke to her in low tones about the guests, about politics, about pack business. Never about them. Cole, she said during one dance. About the honeymoon. We need to postpone, he interrupted smoothly. There's a situation with the northern border territories. Council business. I'll need to handle it immediately. But we planned. Violet. His voice carried that alpha edge that made her wolf want to submit. This is important. You understand duty. It's one of the things I respect about you. Respect. Not love. Not desire. Respect. They left the reception in separate cars, Cole heading to pack headquarters for his emergency meeting, Violet driven to the apartment they were supposed to share. The driver helped her carry her bags inside, then left her alone in the unfamiliar space. Violet stood in the middle of the living room, still wearing her backup wedding dress, and felt the weight of her choices crushing down. This was her first night as a married woman, and she was completely alone. Her phone buzzed, a text from Cole. Don't wait up. This might take all night. She looked around the empty apartment, at the life she had just committed to, and felt her wolf howl inside her chest. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. This wasn't how any of it was supposed to feel. Violet sank onto the couch, careful not to wrinkle her dress, and wondered if the ruined gown had been an omen. A warning she had been too afraid to heed. Chapter 2. Unveiled Betrayal. 2 weeks of marriage felt more like 2 years. Violet had tried everything to settle into her new role as Luna of Silverpine Pack, but the apartment she shared with Cole remained cold and unwelcoming despite her attempts to make it home. She hung curtains, arranged furniture, cooked meals that went uneaten. Cole was never there. Each morning he left before sunrise, claiming urgent pack business. Each night he returned well after midnight, reeking of stress and something else Violet couldn't quite identify. When she tried to initiate conversation, he responded with monosyllables. When she suggested they spend an evening together, he had another meeting, another crisis, another excuse. The pack house visits were worse. As Luna, Violet was expected to attend weekly gatherings where the female pack members discussed territory matters and community events. She had walked into her first meeting with genuine hope, ready to build relationships and prove her worth. The silence that greeted her entrance had been deafening. The women of Silverpine Pack smiled with their mouths but not their eyes. They answered her questions with minimal politeness and changed subjects when she approached conversations. After an hour of being systematically frozen out, Violet had excused herself to the bathroom and called Ivy. Her best friend had picked up on the first ring. "How's married life?" Ivy's voice was bright with forced cheer. "Ivy, something's wrong," Violet had whispered, pressing her back against the bathroom door. "Cole barely speaks to me. The pack women treat me like I'm invisible. This isn't what marriage is supposed to feel like. Give it time," Ivy had said, but her tone suggested she didn't believe her own words. You're adjusting to a new pack. These things take time. Now, standing in the produce section of the grocery store on a Tuesday afternoon, Violet heard her phone buzz. Ivy's name flashed on the screen. I need to see you, Ivy said without preamble. Can you meet me at the coffee shop? The one near your parents' house? 20 minutes later, Violet slid into a booth across from her best friend. Ivy's expression was troubled, her usual confidence replaced by obvious discomfort. What is it? Violet asked, though part of her didn't want to know. Ivy pulled out her phone, scrolling through social media. I've been watching your sister's Instagram. Violet, look at this. The photos were innocuous at first glance. Scarlet in various cafes, restaurants, parks. But as Ivy scrolled, a pattern emerged. In the background of several shots, barely visible, was a man. The same man. Dark hair, broad shoulders, a tribal tattoo visible on one forearm. Cole. This was posted 3 days ago, Ivy said, enlarging an image. And this one last week. They're always in the same places at the same times. Either it's the world's biggest coincidence or they're seeing each other, Violet finished, her voice hollow. The words should have hurt more than they did. Instead, Violet felt a strange numbness spreading through her chest. It made sense. It explained everything. Cole's distance, the pack's coldness, the destroyed wedding dress that had forced her into a backup gown. I could be wrong, Ivy said quickly. Maybe I'm seeing patterns that aren't there. But Violet was already standing, gathering her purse. I need to go home. Violet, wait. Let me come with you. No. I need to see this for myself. The drive back to the apartment felt surreal. Violet's wolf paced restlessly beneath her skin, sensing her distress. She parked in the underground garage and took the elevator up, her heart hammering against her ribs. The apartment was supposed to be empty. Cole had left that morning claiming a full day of territorial negotiations. Violet unlocked the door quietly, stepped inside, and heard voices from down the hall, from Cole's home office. She moved silently across the hardwood floor, her shifter stealth making her footsteps soundless. The office door stood slightly ajar. Through the gap, she could see Scarlet adjusting her blouse, tucking it back into her skirt. Her lipstick was smudged, her hair mussed. Violet pushed the door open fully. Scarlet spun around, her blue eyes widening in manufactured surprise. Violet? I didn't know you'd be home. Clearly. Violet's voice sounded distant to her own ears. She looked past her sister to where Cole sat behind his desk, his expression maddeningly calm. How long? How long what? Scarlet asked, but her tone was too innocent. Practiced. Don't. The word came out sharp. Don't insult me by pretending. How long have you been sleeping with my husband? Something flickered across Scarlet's face. Not shame, not regret. Something closer to triumph. 3 months. The number hit Violet like a physical blow. 3 months. Her sister had been sleeping with Cole for 3 months, which meant the affair had started before the wedding, before Violet had walked down that aisle in her backup dress. You destroyed my wedding gown, Violet said, the pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. That wasn't Eliza. It was you. Scarlet's smile was cold and beautiful. I couldn't let you walk down the aisle looking perfect. Not when you were stealing what should have been mine. Stealing? We're talking about my husband. Your husband. Scarlet laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. He was never yours, Violet. He was always mine. From the moment we met at that charity gala 6 months ago. Do you really think Cole chose you? Plain, boring, responsible Violet? Cole finally stood, moving around the desk. His expression remained neutral, as if they were discussing weather rather than betrayal. Violet, we need to talk. You think? Violet's hands were shaking. Her wolf wanted to surge forward, to shift, to tear something apart. She forced the animal down through sheer will. Tell me this is a mistake. Tell me I'm misunderstanding what I'm seeing. You're not misunderstanding anything. Cole's voice was matter of fact. Scarlet and I have been involved for months. The marriage to you was necessary for political reasons. Your father's connections, his influence with the northern packs. I needed those alliances to expand Silver Pine territory. The clinical way he spoke about using her made Violet's stomach turn. You married me for politics? You stood in front of our families in packs and lied? I made a strategic decision for the good of my pack. That's what alphas do. And Scarlet? Violet turned to her sister. What's your excuse? How could you do this? Scarlet's expression hardened. You've always gotten everything, Violet. Mom and Dad's approval for being the good daughter. Every opportunity handed to you because you're so responsible. Well, Cole wants me. He chose me. And there's nothing you can do about it. Violet's phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Cole glanced at his own phone, and something shifted in his expression. He looked at Scarlet, who was also checking her messages. A silent communication passed between them. What? Violet demanded. Scarlet's hand drifted to her stomach in a gesture so deliberate it had to be planned. I'm pregnant. The world tilted. Violet gripped the edge of Cole's desk to steady herself. What? Found out this morning. Scarlet continued, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Cole's going to be a father. Our baby is due in 8 months. Cole moved to Scarlet's side, his hand resting possessively on her waist. The gesture was intimate, familiar. Everything he had never been with Violet. I want Scarlet as my Luna, Cole said. We need to end this marriage. I'll arrange for a formal separation immediately and provide financial compensation. Separation? Violet's voice cracked. You want me to just disappear so you can play house with my sister? I need the marriage to remain legally valid for now, Cole clarified. The territorial agreements with your father are contingent on our union. But we'll live separately. Eventually, when the political situation stabilizes, we'll pursue dissolution through the council. You're keeping me chained to you for politics while you build a life with her? The reality of it crashed over Violet in waves. You planned this. All of it. Cole's silence was confirmation enough. Violet's phone rang. Her mother's name flashed on the screen. With numb fingers, she answered. Mom? Violet, honey, come home. Claire's voice was thick with tears. Your father just told me everything. Please come home. The drive to her parents' house blurred together. Violet found herself sitting in her childhood bedroom, her mother hovering anxiously while her father paced. I had no idea, Theodore said, his face ashen. Cole assured me he cared for you. The agreements, the territory protections, it was all supposed to secure our family's future. You sold me, Violet said flatly. You traded your daughter for political favors, and Cole took the deal and my sister. I thought, Theodore's voice broke. I thought I was protecting us. The Northern Packs needed Silver Pine's support. Cole promised expansion, protection. I already signed everything. The agreements are finalized. So you sacrificed me for nothing. Violet laughed, but the sound was hollow. Cole got what he wanted. He has your connections, your influence, and he gets to keep Scarlet as his real Luna, while I'm just a name on paper. Claire moved to sit beside Violet on the bed, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. This isn't your fault, sweetheart. None of this is your fault. But it felt like it was. Violet had walked into this marriage with open eyes, had ignored every warning sign, had convinced herself that duty and responsibility mattered more than love. She had been so determined to be the good daughter that she had handed herself over to be used. Another knock on the door. Ivy entered without waiting for permission, her arms full of boxes. I raided your apartment while Cole was out. Got your clothes, your personal things. You're staying here until we figure this out. Over the next hours, Violet's childhood bedroom transformed into a refuge. Ivy unpacked while Claire made tea that went cold. Theodore sat in the hallway, his head in his hands, looking older than his 58 years. Friends from her father's old pack called with hollow condolences. News of the separation was already spreading through the shifter community. By nightfall, Violet lay in her old bed, staring at the ceiling. Her phone kept buzzing with messages, pack members expressing false sympathy, Cole's lawyer sending preliminary separation documents, Scarlet's social media posts, already announcing her pregnancy with careful omissions about the father. Ivy climbed into bed beside her, just like they had done as teenagers. I'm so sorry, Vi. I should have known, Violet whispered. The destroyed dress, the cold ceremony, the way he looked at me like I was a business transaction. I should have run. You trusted him. That's not a weakness. But it felt like one. Violet had built her entire identity on being reliable, responsible, trustworthy, and she had been too blind to see that not everyone shared those values. That some people, like Cole and Scarlett, valued ambition and desire over honor and family. Her wolf whimpered inside her chest, wounded and confused. Violet closed her eyes and let the numbness wash over her. Tomorrow she would have to face the reality of her situation. Tonight, she just wanted to stop feeling anything at all. Chapter 3. Moonlit Boundaries. 1 month. 30 days since Violet's world had shattered into pieces too small to reassemble. She moved through the hours in her childhood bedroom like a ghost, going through motions that felt increasingly hollow. Her wolf, once a steady presence beneath her skin, had become erratic, unpredictable. Sometimes it surged forward at the slightest provocation. Other times, when Violet tried to shift, nothing happened. "It's the trauma," her mother Claire said gently, sitting on the edge of Violet's bed. "Your wolf is protecting you the only way it knows how." But it didn't feel like protection. It felt like losing another piece of herself. Ivy had taken to visiting daily, bringing food that Violet didn't eat, and news from the outside world that she didn't want to hear. Scarlett had posted pregnancy photos on social media, her hand resting on a barely visible bump. Cole had been seen at pack functions with her on his arm. The Silver Pine wolves whispered about the separation, about the Luna who had failed to hold her alpha's interest. "You need to get out of here," Ivy said one afternoon, setting down a bag from the local deli. "Just for a few days. Clear your head." "I can't." Violet stared at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster. "What if Cole needs to contact me about the legal arrangements? What if you lose yourself completely while waiting for scraps from a man who never deserved you?" Ivy's voice was sharp with frustration. "Vi, you're disappearing. I can see it happening and it's terrifying." Violet sat up slowly. Her reflection in the mirror across the room showed someone she barely recognized. Hollow cheeks, dark circles under once bright green eyes, hair that needed washing. The responsible daughter had become a cautionary tale. "Where would I even go?" she asked. "Your grandmother's cabin, the one up near Riverbend Territory. It's been sitting empty since she passed. You loved it there as a kid." The memory surfaced through the fog. Summer vacations spent in a small cabin surrounded by pine trees, her grandmother teaching her to identify animal tracks and edible plants. That had been before the family had fractured, before Scarlett had become the favorite, before Violet had learned that love was conditional. "It's isolated," Ivy continued. "No one to judge you. No one to tell you how you should be feeling. Just you and the forest." "I don't know if I can shift properly," Violet admitted. "What if I get stuck?" "Then you get stuck. At least you'll be somewhere you can work through it without an audience." 2 days later, Violet found herself driving up a winding mountain road, her car packed with basics. The cabin appeared through the trees exactly as she remembered. Small but sturdy, with a wraparound porch and windows that looked out onto endless forest. Her grandmother had left it to her in the will, a gesture that had confused Violet at the time. Now she understood. Her grandmother had known she would need a sanctuary. The interior smelled of cedar and dust. Violet spent the first day cleaning, washing sheets that had been stored in the closet, sweeping away cobwebs. Physical work felt good, purposeful. By the time night fell, her muscles ached in a way that was almost pleasant. She stood on the porch as darkness settled over the forest. The moon was nearly full, its light filtering through the canopy. Her wolf stirred, restless and yearning. How long had it been since she had run? Weeks, maybe longer. Violet stripped off her clothes, leaving them folded on the porch railing. The shift came easier than she expected, though pain accompanied it. Bones realigning, muscles stretching, fur sprouting across skin that had been human moments before. When it finished, she stood on 4 legs, her senses suddenly alive with information. The scent of pine and earth, the sound of small creatures moving through underbrush, the pull of the moon overhead. She ran. For the first time in a month, Violet felt free. Her paws hit the ground in a steady rhythm. Trees blurred past. The night air filled her lungs with each breath. She ran without direction, without purpose, simply reveling in movement and speed, and the pure animal joy of existing in this form. She didn't realize she had crossed a boundary until the scent changed. The forest here smelled different, marked. This was pack territory. Violet skidded to a halt, her heart suddenly racing for different reasons. She had trespassed, entered another alpha's lands without permission. Every shifter knew the consequences of that mistake. The patrol appeared before she could retreat. 3 wolves, all larger than her, emerged from the shadows. Their postures were aggressive, but controlled. Guard wolves, doing their duty. The largest, a gray male with battle scars across his muzzle, growled low in his throat. Violet dropped into a submissive posture, belly low to the ground, ears flat. She had no excuse, no defense. She was a stranger in their territory, and pack law was clear about such violations. The gray wolf shifted to human form. "Don't move," he said, his voice carrying authority. "Nathan, alert the alpha. We have an intruder." One of the other wolves took off at a run. Violet remained frozen, her heart hammering. Cole had taught her about territorial disputes. Alphas could be brutal when defending their lands. At best, she would be escorted to the border and warned never to return. At worst, the minutes stretched. The 2 remaining patrol wolves circled her, keeping her trapped without physically touching. Violet's legs trembled with the effort of maintaining her submissive stance. Then she caught a new scent on the wind. Warm, complex, something that made her wolf perk up with interest despite their dangerous situation. Through the trees, a figure approached. He was tall, broad-shouldered, moving with an ease that suggested complete confidence in his territory. When he stepped into the moonlit clearing, Violet's breath caught. Griffin. As they walked, Violet realized her breathing matched his without trying. Inhale, exhale. A borrowed rhythm that steadied the ragged edges of fear. His scent, pine warmed by sun and something clean like river water, didn't crowd her the way other alphas did. It made space. When her paws slipped on loose needles, his hand hovered, but didn't touch until she nodded. Her wolf, skittish for weeks, went quiet, as if recognizing a pattern written under the skin. Westbrook. She recognized him from regional gatherings, though they had never spoken. The alpha of Riverbend pack was younger than Cole, maybe early 30s, with light brown hair that looked deliberately tousled and eyes that caught the moonlight. Even in the darkness, she could see the faint dimple in his chin. He studied her for a long moment, his head tilted. Then, impossibly, he smiled. "Well," he said, his voice carrying warmth that seemed at odds with the situation. "This is unexpected. Nathan, what have we caught?" "Unknown female alpha," the gray wolf reported. "She crossed the eastern boundary approximately 10 minutes ago. No identification, no stated purpose." Griffin crouched down, bringing himself closer to Violet's eye level. "Hey there, little wolf. You seem lost. And scared. Neither of those things requires you to be quite so terrified." The gentleness in his tone made something in Violet's chest crack. She wanted to shift back, to explain, but her body refused. The trauma that had made shifting difficult also made it unpredictable. She was stuck. "Can't shift back?" Griffin asked, as if reading her thoughts. He glanced at his patrol. "Give us some space. I'll handle this." The other wolves retreated, though Nathan looked uncertain. "Alpha, we don't know if she's dangerous. Look at her, Nathan. She's barely holding herself together. I think I can manage." Once they were alone, Griffin sat cross-legged on the forest floor. The gesture was deliberately non-threatening. "I'm going to guess you didn't mean to trespass. You were running, lost yourself in the moment, and ended up somewhere you shouldn't be. Am I close?" Violet managed a small nod. "Thought so. Been there myself, actually. First year as alpha, I was so stressed I shifted and ran straight through 3 different territories before I realized what I'd done. Caused a diplomatic incident. My beta still brings it up at parties. Despite everything, Violet felt the smallest flutter of amusement. So, here's what we're going to do, Griffin continued. I'm going to walk you back to the border. We'll take it slow. And I'm going to talk the entire way because silence is boring and you look like you could use a distraction. Sound good? Another nod. Griffin stood, brushing dirt from his jeans. Come on then. Stay close. They walked through the forest at an easy pace. True to his word, Griffin talked. He told her about the time his patrol had mistaken a very large dog for a rogue wolf and chased it through town. About the pack member who insisted on baking experimental desserts that usually ended in disaster. About the ongoing debate over whether movie night should feature action films or comedies. His voice was steady, calming. The stories were clearly meant to distract, to ease the tension in her frame. Violet found herself listening, her fear gradually receding. This wasn't how alphas were supposed to act. They were meant to be stern, commanding, focused on power and dominance. Griffin seemed more interested in making her comfortable. You're in pain, he said suddenly, his tone shifting. Shifting hurts you right now. Physical pain, not just the normal discomfort. Violet faltered in her steps. How had he known? I can smell it, Griffin explained. And I can see it in the way you're moving. Trauma does that sometimes. Makes the shift unpredictable. Makes everything harder. He paused. Whatever you're going through, whatever brought you to my territory tonight, I'm sorry. The kindness in his voice was too much. Violet felt her control slipping. She needed to shift back. Needed to explain. Needed to leave before she completely fell apart in front of this stranger. Take your time, Griffin said softly. There's no rush. We're almost to the border anyway. They emerged into a small clearing. Griffin pointed to a line of stones marking the boundary. That's neutral territory. Once you cross, you're safe from pack law. Violet focused every ounce of willpower on the shift. It came reluctantly, painfully. Her bones protested the change. Her muscles spasmed. When it finally finished, she collapsed to her knees, gasping. Griffin immediately pulled off his jacket and draped it around her shoulders. Easy. You pushed too hard. I'm sorry. Violet managed through tears she couldn't control. I didn't mean to trespass. I wasn't thinking. I just needed to run, and I lost track of where I was. Hey, no harm done. Griffin crouched beside her again. You want to tell me why shifting hurt that much? Violet shook her head. It's complicated. Most things worth discussing are. He studied her face in the moonlight. You're not from any pack I recognize. New to the area? Temporary, Violet said. I'm staying at my grandmother's cabin. Just for a few days. The old Hayes property. Griffin's expression brightened. I remember your grandmother. She used to bring cookies to the pack house when I was a kid. You're her granddaughter? Violet Hayes. Something shifted in Griffin's eyes. Recognition. She watched him connect the dots. Hayes. The failed marriage to Silver Pines Alpha. The separation that had become gossip fodder throughout the region. But instead of pity or judgment, Griffin simply said, Well, Violet Hayes, I'm Griffin Westbrook, and I'm glad you're okay. He stood, pulling a phone from his pocket. I'm going to give you my number. If you need anything while you're here, call. If you want to run but you're worried about crossing boundaries again, call. If you just need someone who won't ask questions, call. Why would you do that? Violet asked. You don't know me. Griffin smiled, and the dimple appeared in his chin. Because everyone needs someone who understands what it's like to lose control sometimes. And because you looked like you needed a friend tonight more than you needed an alpha enforcing territory rules, he helped her to her feet, steadying her when she swayed. Get some rest. Your wolf will feel better after you've slept. Violet watched him disappear back into his territory, his jacket still warm around her shoulders. In her hand, his phone number glowed on her screen. For the first time in a month, she felt something other than despair. It was small, fragile, barely there at all, but it felt remarkably like hope. Chapter 4. Roots and Renewal. 3 nights after her encounter with Griffin, Violet woke at 2 a.m, drenched in sweat, her heart racing so fast she thought it might burst through her ribs. The nightmare had been vivid, Cole's voice telling her she was worthless, Scarlett laughing, the wedding dress in shreds, her parents watching with disappointment etched across their faces. She stumbled out of bed, legs shaking, and barely made it to the bathroom before she was sick. Her reflection in the mirror showed someone she didn't recognize. Wild eyes, trembling hands, the panic attack. The healer's hands were steady and cool against Violet's pulse. "Your wolf isn't failing you," she said, listening to Violet's breath. "She's overprotecting you." Acute betrayal trauma can scramble the feedback loop between human mind and animal instinct. Your shifts stall, come late, or hurt. We treat it like any torn muscle. Slow exposure, consistent grounding, and someone you trust talking you back when panic spikes. Will it stop? It won't vanish overnight, the healer said, but it will answer to patience and practice. You're already mending. Gripped her chest like a vice, making it impossible to breathe properly. Her phone sat on the nightstand. Griffin's number glowed on the screen from where she had saved it. Violet stared at it for a long moment, pride warring with desperation. She barely knew him. He was an alpha with responsibilities. It was the middle of the night. Her fingers dialed before conscious thought could stop them. He answered on the second ring, his voice alert despite the hour. "Violet, what's wrong?" "I can't breathe," she managed. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have called. I don't know why Where are you? The cabin." "Yes. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Stay on the line with me." Griffin talked to her the entire drive. Not about anything important. Just steady conversation about his beta Nathan's terrible cooking skills, about the pack member who kept accidentally setting off the fire alarms during full moon gatherings, about the ongoing debate over whether werewolves could actually enjoy vegetables, or if that was a myth. His voice anchored her. By the time headlights swept across the cabin windows, Violet's breathing had steadied enough that she could unlock the door. Griffin stood on her porch holding a thermos and a paper bag from the 24-hour diner in town. Chocolate, the solution to most of life's problems. Also French fries, because sometimes carbs help. Violet found herself laughing despite everything. "You brought me comfort food at 2 a.m. I brought me comfort food. You just happened to benefit." He held up the bag. "Can I come in?" They sat on the cabin floor with their backs against the couch, the thermos of hot chocolate between them. Griffin didn't ask what had triggered the panic attack. Instead, he told her about taking over as alpha at 28 when his father had unexpectedly stepped down. "I had no idea what I was doing," Griffin admitted, stealing one of Violet's fries. "My first pack meeting, I accidentally called for a vote on something that alphas traditionally just decide. Nathan spent the next hour explaining why I'd just undermined my own authority. But you figured it out," Violet said. "Eventually, with a lot of mistakes along the way." His honey-colored eyes found hers. "The point is, everyone feels lost sometimes. Everyone has moments where they can't breathe, where the weight of everything crashes down. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Or, wolf. Whatever." The sky was turning pink with dawn when Griffin finally stood to leave. "I have a favor to ask. We're working on a reforestation project along the eastern boundary. Planting native species, restoring habitat. Could use an extra set of hands if you're interested." "I don't know anything about forestry," Violet said. "Neither did I before we started. But it turns out digging holes and putting trees in them is remarkably therapeutic." Over the next 2 weeks, Violet found herself spending more time on Riverbend territory than at the cabin. The reforestation project became a routine. She would arrive mid-morning to find Griffin and a rotating crew of pack members already working. They planted saplings, cleared invasive species, marked areas for future growth. The physical labor was exactly what Violet needed. By a week later, Marcella emailed a formal statement and footage stills. Claire submitted them to the council's ethics board, and the verdict came quiet and clean. Community service, restitution for the destroyed gown, and a temporary ban on attending interpack functions unsupervised. For once, Scarlett's beauty didn't open any doors. The end of each day, her muscles ached in a satisfying way that left little energy for dwelling on her shattered marriage. The pack members treated her with casual friendliness, never mentioning silver pine or coal or any of the gossip that must have reached them. Griffin worked alongside everyone else, his shirt invariably covered in dirt by noon, his laughter carrying through the trees. He had a gift for making people comfortable. Pack members joked with him as easily as they followed his instructions. There was no rigid hierarchy, No fear-based obedience, just genuine respect. Your pack really loves you, Violet observed one afternoon as they took a water break. Griffin shrugged, looking almost embarrassed. They tolerate me, mostly because Nathan keeps me from making terrible decisions. That's not what I see. What do you see? Violet considered the question carefully. I see an alpha who cares more about his people than his power, who shows up at 2 a.m. with chocolate when someone needs help, who gets his hands dirty instead of just giving orders. Something shifted in Griffin's expression. The usual humor faded, replaced by an intensity that made Violet's breath catch. And what about you, Violet? What do you need? The question hung between them. Violet was acutely aware of how close they were standing, how the afternoon sun caught gold highlights in his hair, how his scent of pine and something uniquely him seemed to wrap around her. I don't know anymore, she admitted. Griffin reached out slowly, giving her time to retreat, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered against her cheek. I think you do. You're just afraid to want it. Violet's heart hammered. She swayed toward him, drawn by something she couldn't name. His gaze dropped to her lips. The moment stretched, charged with possibility. Then her phone rang, shattering the tension. Cole's name flashed on the screen. Violet stepped back quickly, answering with a trembling hand. What do you want? We need to finalize the separation paperwork, Cole said, his voice cold and businesslike. Where are you? That's none of your concern. It is if you're ignoring legal documents. I'm sending my lawyer to your parents' house. Be there tomorrow at 2. The call ended before Violet could respond. She stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. Everything okay? Griffin asked carefully. Cole wants to meet about the separation. Do you want company? Moral support? Violet shook her head. I need to handle this myself. But the next afternoon, when she arrived at her parents' house to find Cole's car already in the driveway, her courage faltered. She sat in her vehicle for several minutes, gathering strength. The front door opened. Cole stepped out, spotted her car, and his expression darkened. Then his gaze shifted to something behind her. Violet turned to see Griffin's truck pulling up to the curb. I thought you might want backup after all, Griffin said, climbing out. Nathan's waiting at the coffee shop down the street if you need us to disappear. Cole stalked toward them, every line of his body radiating alpha aggression. Who the hell is this? Griffin Westbrook, Griffin said pleasantly, extending his hand. Alpha of Riverbend Pack. Cole ignored the offered handshake. What's the Alpha of Riverbend doing with my wife? Your separated wife, Griffin corrected, his tone still friendly but with an edge beneath. Who called me because she needed support. Something you seem to have forgotten how to provide. This is none of your business. Actually, when you make Violet uncomfortable enough that she needs someone else there, it becomes my business. Violet stepped between them before the territorial posturing could escalate. Cole, let's just get this over with. But Cole's attention was fixed on Griffin, his nostrils flaring as he scented the air. You've been spending time together. I can smell him on you. We're friends, Violet said firmly. That's allowed, even in a separation. Friends. Cole's laugh was harsh. How convenient. You couldn't hold my interest, so you're already moving on to another alpha? The words struck like physical blows. Violet felt her wolf surge forward, fury replacing fear. But before she could respond, Griffin moved smoothly between them. That's enough, Griffin said, his voice carrying alpha command now. You don't talk to her that way. You have no authority here. Cole snarled. Actually, we're on neutral ground, which means pack hierarchy doesn't apply. Griffin's pleasant demeanor had vanished completely, replaced by something cold and dangerous. What does apply is basic decency, which you seem to lack. For a moment, Violet thought they might actually fight. Both alphas were tense, ready to shift at the slightest provocation. The air crackled with supernatural energy. Stop. Violet's voice cut through the tension. Both of you. Griffin, thank you, but I can handle this. Cole, you want me to sign papers? Fine. But you don't get to comment on my life anymore. You lost that right when you chose my sister. She pushed past both of them into the house. Her parents were in the kitchen, pretending not to have witnessed the scene outside. Cole's lawyer sat at the dining table with a stack of documents, An hour later, Violet emerged having signed everything: formal separation, division of the minimal assets they'd accumulated in 2 weeks of marriage, agreements about how the legal marriage would continue for Cole's political purposes while they lived completely separate lives. Griffin was still there, leaning against his truck. Cole's car was gone. "You waited," Violet said. "Of course I waited." Griffin straightened. "Are you okay?" "I don't know." Violet felt exhausted down to her bones. He was right, wasn't he? About me not being enough to hold his interest. "Hey." Griffin caught her hand. "Cole's a manipulative bastard who used you for political gain. His inability to recognize your worth says nothing about you and everything about his deficiencies. You barely know me." "I know enough." Griffin's thumb traced circles on her palm. "I know you're brave enough to keep going after being betrayed by the 2 people who should have protected you. I know you laugh at my terrible jokes even when you're hurting. I know you work harder than anyone else on the planting project because you need purpose. That's more than enough to know you're remarkable." Violet felt tears burning behind her eyes. "Why are you being so kind to me?" Griffin was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "Because from the moment I saw you in my territory, terrified and unable to shift back, my wolf recognized something. I'm not going to pressure you. I'm not going to rush anything. But I need you to know that when I look at you, I see someone worth knowing. Worth protecting. Worth—" He stopped himself. "Worth what?" Violet whispered. "Worth waiting for. However long it takes." Later, after Griffin had left, Violet sat on her childhood bed and replayed the day. The confrontation with Cole. The way Griffin had stepped between them without hesitation. The feeling of his hand in hers. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ivy checking in. Another from her mother asking if she was okay. And one from Griffin. "Nathan says Cole's been talking to other alphas about forming an alliance against Riverbend, using Scarlett's pregnancy to gain sympathy. Thought you should know." Violet stared at the message. Cole was already weaponizing his relationship with her sister for political gain. The baby that wasn't even born yet was just another tool in his ambition. She typed back, "Thank you for telling me, and thank you for today." Griffin's response was immediate. "Anytime, literally. I meant what I said about calling whenever." Violet smiled despite everything. 3 weeks ago, she had been trapped in a marriage to a man who saw her as a transaction. Now she had found someone who saw her as a person worth defending, who made her laugh when she wanted to cry, who respected her boundaries while making it clear he wanted more when she was ready. She wasn't ready yet. The wounds were too fresh, the trust too damaged. But for the first time since her world had collapsed, Violet could imagine a future where she might be. Chapter 5. Shattered Illusions. 2 weeks after the confrontation with Cole, Violet received a call that pulled her back to the world she had been trying to escape. Marcus Brennan, the elder wolf who had mentored her through her teenage years, had passed away peacefully in his sleep. The funeral would be held at the Crescent Moon Community Center, the pack her father had once served. Violet stood in front of her closet at her parents' house, trying to decide what to wear. Black seemed too formal. Marcus had hated formal occasions. She settled on a simple gray dress and pulled her hair back. "You don't have to go," her mother Claire said from the doorway. "No one would blame you for staying away." "Marcus was there for me when no one else was," Violet said. "I'm not going to let Cole's presence keep me from saying goodbye." The community center was crowded when Violet arrived. Wolves from 3 different packs had come to pay respects to a man who had served his community for over 60 years. Violet slipped into a seat near the back, trying to remain invisible. She spotted Cole and Scarlett near the front. Her sister's hand rested on a small bump, visible beneath her elegant black dress. The pregnancy was showing now. Impossible to hide. Violet felt a pang that surprised her. Not jealousy. Something closer to pity. The service was beautiful. Speaker after speaker shared stories of Marcus's wisdom, his patience, his unwavering dedication to teaching young wolves about their heritage. When it ended, Violet stood to leave quickly, but a hand caught her arm. "Violet, wait." It was old Mrs. Chen, a friend of her grandmother's. "How are you holding up, dear?" "I'm managing," Violet said, glancing toward the exit. "That's good to hear. Such terrible business with your marriage. Mrs. Chen lowered her voice. But between you and me, I always thought there was something off about that boy. Too ambitious by half. Violet extracted herself as politely as possible and headed for the parking lot. She had almost reached her car when she heard rapid footsteps behind her. Violet, please. Scarlett's voice was strained. I need to talk to you. Violet turned slowly. Up close, her sister looked terrible despite the expensive makeup. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Her hands trembled. What do you want, Scarlett? Can we go somewhere private? Please. It's important. Against her better judgment, Violet followed her sister to a small park across the street. They sat on a bench beneath an oak tree, and for a long moment, neither spoke. I lost the baby, Scarlett said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. 3 days ago, I woke up bleeding and I knew. The doctor confirmed it. Miscarriage. The words hit Violet unexpectedly hard. Scarlett, I'm so sorry. That's terrible. Don't. Scarlett's voice turned sharp. Don't pretend to care. You probably wish this would happen. That's not true, Violet said, meaning it. I'm angry at you. Furious. But I would never wish that on anyone. Scarlett laughed bitterly. Well, it doesn't matter anyway. Cole doesn't know yet. I've been taking scent suppressors, the medical kind that mask hormonal changes. As far as he knows, everything's fine. Violet stared at her sister. Why would you lie about something like that? Because the moment he finds out, he'll leave me. Scarlett's composure cracked. The only reason he's with me is the baby. He told me that. Once there's no baby, there's no reason for him to stay. Scarlett, you can't fake a pregnancy. Eventually, I know. Scarlett's voice rose, then dropped. I know. But I need time. Time to figure out what to do. Time to make him fall in love with me for real. That's not going to happen, Violet said gently. Cole doesn't love anyone but himself. He could love me, if I just try harder, if I'm everything he needs. Scarlett grabbed Violet's hands. Please don't tell him. Please, you're my sister. You're supposed to protect me. Violet pulled away. I'm supposed to protect you? After what you did? After you destroyed my wedding dress and slept with my husband and told me you hoped I suffered? I didn't mean those things. I was jealous. I've always been jealous of you. Jealous of me? Violet's voice rose despite her attempt to stay calm. You were Mom and Dad's favorite. You got everything you ever wanted. What could you possibly be jealous of? You were good, Scarlett shouted. You were responsible and smart and everyone respected you. I was just pretty. That's all anyone ever saw. So when Cole looked at me like I was something more than a decoration, I couldn't let go, even if it meant hurting you. Violet stood. I can't help you, Scarlett. I'm sorry about the baby. I truly am. But I can't fix this for you. Please, Scarlett begged. I have no one else. You should have thought about that before you destroyed my life for your own entertainment. Violet walked away, her heart pounding. Behind her, she could hear Scarlett crying. Part of her wanted to turn back, to comfort her sister despite everything. But the stronger part knew that Scarlett had made her choices. The consequences were hers to bear. The confrontation with Scarlett should have been the worst part of the day. It wasn't. Violet returned to her parents' house to find a tense atmosphere. Her father Theodore sat at the kitchen table, his face drawn. Her mother Claire stood by the sink, her posture rigid. What's going on? Violet asked. Theodore looked up, and something in his expression made Violet's stomach drop. Sit down, Violet. I'd rather stand. Your mother and I have been talking about a lot of things, about the choices I made, about why I made them. Theodore's hands clenched on the table. You deserve the truth. About why I pushed you into the marriage with Cole. About why I always seem to favor Scarlett. Theodore, don't, Claire said quietly. She needs to know, Claire. She's earned that much. Violet sank into a chair, her legs suddenly unable to support her weight. Your mother wasn't my first mate, Theodore began. I was bonded before when I was 23. Her name was Catherine. She was beautiful, vibrant, everything I thought I wanted. We had 3 years together before she died in a rogue attack. Violet's breath caught. She had never known her father had been bonded before. I was destroyed, Theodore continued. I thought I would never feel anything again. And then I met your mother. And slowly, I learned to live again. We had you first. And you were perfect. Strong, intelligent. Everything a father could want in a daughter. Then why? Violet started. Let me finish. Theodore's voice was rough. 2 years later, Scarlett was born. And the moment I saw her, I saw Catherine. The same blonde hair, the same blue eyes, the same smile. It was like having her back in a way. And I couldn't help myself. I favored Scarlett because loving her felt like honoring Catherine's memory. The words landed like physical blows. Violet's entire childhood suddenly made horrible sense. The preferential treatment. The constant feeling of not being enough. It had never been about her at all. It had been about a dead woman she had never met. You sacrificed me for a ghost, Violet whispered. I sacrificed you for nothing, Theodore said, his voice breaking. I destroyed my relationship with you to preserve a memory. And when Cole offered his political alliance, I saw it as a way to give you value, to make up for years of treating you like you were less important. By selling me to a man who never wanted me? I thought it was a good match. Theodore's voice failed. Claire moved suddenly, her hand cracking across her husband's face. The sound echoed through the kitchen. Theodore didn't flinch. That's enough, Claire said, her voice shaking with fury. 55 years I've watched you choose a memory over your living daughter. I've kept quiet because I thought you would eventually see what you were doing. But you never did. You just kept hurting her. Claire. No. I'm done being silent. Claire moved to stand beside Violet's chair, her hand resting protectively on her daughter's shoulder. Violet is brilliant, compassionate, strong. She has been holding this family together while you've been lost in the past, and you repaid her by treating her like she was disposable. Theodore looked up at his wife, then at Violet. I'm sorry. I know it's not enough. I know I can't fix what I've broken. But I'm sorry. Violet stood, Claire's hand falling away. I need to leave. Violet, please. Her mother started. I can't be here right now. I just can't. She drove back to the cabin in a daze, her father's words echoing in her mind. Everything she had believed about herself, about her worth, had been built on a foundation of someone else's grief. She hadn't been unloved, because she was unlovable. She had been unloved, because she reminded her father that his first mate was gone. The realization should have been freeing. Instead, it felt like another betrayal. Violet parked the car and walked into the forest without conscious thought. Her wolf was howling inside her chest, frantic and wounded. She needed to shift, needed to run, needed to escape the crushing weight of knowledge she hadn't wanted. The shift came wrong, painful. Violet's bones cracked and reformed, but her human mind stayed present, tangled with her wolf's instincts. She could feel herself losing control, her animal nature surging forward to escape the emotional agony. She ran, through trees, across streams, not caring about direction or territory or anything except the desperate need to outrun the pain. Her wolf pushed harder against her consciousness, demanding full control. If Violet let go, if she surrendered to the animal completely, she might never come back. Shifters who lost themselves to their wolves rarely recovered their humanity. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt almost appealing. What was human Violet anyway? A daughter unwanted by her father. A wife betrayed by her husband. A sister despised by her sibling. Maybe it would be better to just let go, to become only wolf, without memory or heartbreak. She was so lost in her spiral that she didn't sense the other presence until strong hands caught her mid-shift, human fingers tangling in her fur. Violet, stop. Griffin's voice cut through the chaos. I've got you. You're safe. She snarled, snapping at his hands. Her wolf saw him as a threat, something preventing her escape. I know you're hurting. Griffin didn't let go, even when her teeth grazed his arm. I know everything feels impossible right now. But you can't do this. You can't let your wolf take over completely. You'll lose yourself. Another voice, female. Vi, please, come back. Ivy appeared beside Griffin, her face pale with fear. Whatever happened, we can fix it. Just come back. The sound of her best friend's voice penetrated the fog. Violet's wolf hesitated, confused by the familiar scent. That's it, Griffin said gently. His hands moved to cradle her wolf's head, his touch firm, but careful. You're stronger than this, stronger than the pain. Come back to us. His voice carried alpha command, but it was gentle, coaxing rather than forcing. Violet felt her human mind gaining ground, pushing back against her wolf's desperate bid for control. The shift back was agony, worse than anything she had experienced before. When it finished, she collapsed into Griffin's arms, naked and shaking and sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. I've got you, Griffin murmured, wrapping his jacket around her. You're safe. I promise you're safe. Ivy knelt beside them, her hand rubbing circles on Violet's back. What happened? Everything, Violet managed between sobs. My father, Scarlet, Cole. It's all too much. Shh, Griffin said, pulling her closer. We're going to take you back to the cabin. You're going to rest. And tomorrow, when you're ready, we'll figure this out together. They half carried her back, Griffin holding her against his chest, while Ivy walked ahead to open doors and prepare the bed. Violet barely registered the movement. She was exhausted beyond anything she had ever felt, wrung out emotionally and physically. Griffin laid her gently on the bed, pulling blankets over her. He started to step back, but Violet's hand shot out, catching his wrist. Don't go, she whispered. Please don't go. Griffin exchanged a glance with Ivy, who nodded and quietly left the room. Then he sat on the edge of the bed, his hand finding Violet's. I'm not going anywhere, he said. My father never loved me, Violet said, the words spilling out. Not really. I was just a reminder that his first mate was dead. And Scarlet hates me because I was the good daughter, even though Dad didn't care. And Cole used me. Everyone just used me. Not everyone, Griffin said quietly. Ivy loves you. Your mother loves you. And He stopped, his jaw working. What? Violet asked. Griffin was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. From the moment I found you in my territory, terrified and unable to shift back, my wolf recognized you, not as pack, not as friend, as mate. Violet's breath caught. I'm not telling you this to pressure you, Griffin continued quickly. I'm telling you because you need to know that not everyone sees you as something to use. Some of us see you as someone worth knowing, worth protecting, worth... He stopped again. Worth what? Violet whispered, echoing their conversation weeks ago. Worth everything, Griffin said simply. But I'll wait, however long it takes for you to heal, to trust again, to be ready. I'll wait. Violet stared at this man who had appeared in her life at her lowest moment, who had showed her kindness without expecting anything in return, who had defended her against Cole, who had just prevented her from losing her humanity entirely. I'm broken, she said. You're healing, Griffin corrected. There's a difference. He stayed beside her until she fell asleep, his presence a steady anchor in a world that had tilted too far off its axis. And somewhere in the darkness before sleep claimed her completely, Violet realized that maybe, eventually, she could learn to trust again, to hope again, to believe that she deserved the kind of love Griffin was offering. But not yet. First, she needed to survive. Chapter 6. Blood and Victory. 1 week after Violet nearly lost herself to her wolf, life had taken on a tentative rhythm. She spent her mornings at the cabin, afternoons working on the reforestation project with Griffin's pack, and evenings processing everything that had happened. Griffin respected the boundaries she needed, but his presence remained constant, steady, safe. They were planting saplings along the eastern boundary when Nathan came running through the trees, his face grave. Alpha, we have a situation, Nathan said, barely winded despite the sprint. Cole Hartfield and a dozen of his warriors just crossed into our territory. He's demanding to see Violet. Griffin's expression hardened instantly. How many warriors? 12, all armed and in fighting stance. Violet's stomach dropped. This is my fault. I should leave before. You're not going anywhere, Griffin said firmly. He turned to Nathan. Alert the pack. Full defensive formation, but no aggressive moves unless I give the order. Violet stays with me. They met Cole at the main clearing, where territorial disputes were traditionally settled. Griffin's pack had assembled quickly, forming a protective semicircle behind their alpha. Cole stood with his warriors spread out in an intimidating display of force. Violet, Cole called out, ignoring Griffin entirely. We need to talk. Alone. Anything you need to say, you can say in front of witnesses, Violet replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Cole's jaw tightened. The separation was supposed to be temporary. I've decided it's time for you to return home. Our marriage remains legally valid, and pack law states that you're trespassing on my territory with an armed force, Griffin interrupted, his voice carrying alpha command. That's an act of aggression. I'm reclaiming my wife. Your separated wife who wants nothing to do with you, Griffin countered. Leave. Now. Cole's eyes flickered with something dangerous. You have no say in this, Westbrook. Violet is bound to me by legal marriage, witnessed by both packs and ratified by the regional council. Those agreements give me the right to demand her presence. Griffin stepped forward, placing himself between Cole and Violet. Those agreements were built on fraud. You used her for political gain while sleeping with her sister. Any alpha with integrity would dissolve the bond immediately. Integrity? Cole laughed coldly. This from the alpha who's been harboring another man's wife for weeks. How convenient that she ended up in your territory. In your bed. I'm not in his bed, Violet said sharply, though heat flushed her cheeks. And even if I were, it wouldn't be any of your concern. You gave up the right to care about my life when you chose Scarlett. Cole's expression twisted. Scarlett lied about the pregnancy. She lost it weeks ago and said nothing. Do you understand what that means? I gave up political stability, my mother's approval, everything, for a child that doesn't exist. So Scarlett's lie had been discovered. Violet felt a pang of something that might have been pity if she weren't so focused on Cole's current threat. That's between you and Scarlett, Violet said. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with you. Cole's control was slipping. Without the pregnancy, without Scarlett, I need the marriage to remain valid. Your father's connections, the territorial agreements. So this is still about politics, Violet said quietly. Even now, you see me as nothing more than a useful tool. I see you as my legal wife who is refusing her duty. Something inside Violet snapped. Weeks of trauma, betrayal, and fear crystallized into cold fury. She stepped around Griffin, ignoring his warning growl. You want me back? Then fight for it, Violet said, her voice carrying across the clearing. I challenge you to a dissolution duel. Winner takes everything. Loser accepts the council's judgment without appeal. Shocked silence fell over both groups. Dissolution duels were rare. Ancient tradition invoked only in the most serious disputes. If Violet won, the marriage would be dissolved immediately, and all political agreements nullified. If Cole won, she would be bound to return to him with no legal recourse. Violet, no, Griffin said urgently. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. She met his eyes. I'm done being a victim. Done letting him control my life. This ends now. Cole's smile was predatory. I accept. 3 days from now. Neutral territory. The regional council of alphas as witnesses. Agreed, Violet said, before anyone could stop her. After Cole and his warriors left, Griffin pulled Violet aside. Do you understand what you just did? Dissolution duels are brutal. No rules except no death blows. Cole will try to break you. Then I'll break him first. Violet's hands were shaking, but her voice remained steady. I need this, Griffin. I need to prove to myself that I'm not the powerless woman he tried to make me believe I was. Griffin studied her face for a long moment. Then I'll train you. We have 3 days to turn you into a warrior. Those 3 days were the most physically demanding of Violet's life. Griffin woke her before dawn for conditioning runs. Nathan drilled her on defensive techniques. Other pack members taught her how to read an opponent's tells, how to use her smaller size as an advantage, how to turn defense into offense. Griffin was relentless, but patient. When Violet's form slipped, he corrected gently. When exhaustion made her sloppy, he pushed her to find reserves of strength she didn't know existed. At night, he tended her bruises and strained muscles with a healer's touch. "You're ready," Griffin said on the evening before the duel. They sat by the cabin's fireplace, Violet's body aching, but her mind clear. "But I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If it goes wrong, if he's about to seriously injure you, surrender. Your pride isn't worth permanent damage, and if I surrender, I go back to him. Then I'll find another way to get you free," Griffin said fiercely. "Legal challenges, council appeals, something. But I won't watch you die for the principle of the thing." Violet reached for his hand. "I'm not going to die. I'm going to win." The neutral territory was a clearing in the forest between 3 packlands, designated centuries ago for settling disputes. When Violet arrived with Griffin and Ivy, she found it already crowded. The regional council of alphas sat in a raised section, 5 stern-faced wolves who would judge the combat. Cole stood in the center with his mother Eliza and several Silverpine pack members. "You came," Cole said as Violet approached. "I half expected you to run." "I'm done running from you." The head counselor, an ancient alpha named Morrison, stepped forward. "This is a dissolution duel, called by Violet Hayes Hartfield against her legal mate Cole Hartfield. The rules are, no forged weapons, no poisons, no pack interference," head counselor Morrison intoned. "Natural objects at hand are permitted. No death blows. The duel ends upon yielding or incapacitation. Traditional. No weapons. No interference from seconds. No death blows. The duel continues until one party yields or is incapacitated. The winner's terms will be enforced by council law. Are both parties willing?" "I am," Violet said. "I am," Cole echoed. "Then begin." Cole shifted immediately, his wolf form massive and intimidating. He expected Violet to shift as well, to meet him as an equal predator. Instead, she stayed human, drawing on everything Griffin had taught her. A wolf's attacks were powerful, but predictable. In human form, Violet was more agile, more unpredictable. She could use tools, could think tactically instead of relying on instinct. Cole lunged. Violet dodged left, her hand closing around a fallen branch. When he came at her again, she swung hard, catching him across the snout. He yelped and backed off, surprised. "Shift," Cole snarled, his voice distorted by his wolf form. "Fight me properly." "No," Violet said. "I fight my way." She pressed her advantage, forcing Cole to defend against attacks he couldn't predict. A kick to his ribs, dirt thrown in his eyes. When he finally caught her arm in his jaws, she didn't panic. Instead, she used her free hand to gouge at his eyes until he released her. The fight lasted 20 brutal minutes. By the end, both were bleeding, exhausted, and desperate. Cole pinned Violet to the ground, his weight crushing her chest. His jaws opened near her throat. "Yield," he demanded. Violet's hand found a rock. With the last of her strength, she brought it down on Cole's temple. He collapsed sideways, dazed. She rolled on top of him, pressing her forearm across his windpipe, with just enough pressure to restrict his breathing. "You used me," Violet said, her voice raw. "You manipulated my father, betrayed me with my sister, and tried to keep me chained to you for politics. I want the council to know what kind of alpha you are." She raised her voice so everyone could hear. 3 months before our wedding, Cole started an affair with my sister. He married me knowing he wanted her. He used our bond to secure territorial agreements, then demanded separation while keeping the marriage legal for political gain. He cares nothing for pack loyalty or honor, only for power. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The council alphas leaned forward, their expressions grave. "Is this true?" Morrison demanded. Cole couldn't answer with Violet's arm on his throat, but his silence was answer enough. Eliza's face had gone white with horror. "I yield, recorded for the rolls," Morrison declared. Alpha Cole Hartfield is formally censured for dishonor by deception and for advancing armed onto neutral land to coerce a separated spouse. Council review of Silverpine's pending claims is hereby opened. A rustle of shocked whispers moved through the crowd, like wind through dry grass. For the first time, Cole looked small. Counselor Dajan rose, gaze hard. Riverbend's healer confirmed scent maskers of the restricted class were purchased under an alias last month and administered without oversight. Such medical masking to mislead an alpha's legal decision is a censure-level offense. Notices will be served. Eliza flinched. Cole said nothing. Cole finally gasped. I yield. Violet released him and stood, swaying but triumphant. I want the marriage dissolved. All agreements nullified. And I want it recorded that Cole Hartfield violated pack honor through deception and betrayal. Morrison stood. The dissolution is granted. The marriage between Violet Hayes and Cole Hartfield is dissolved, effective immediately. All territorial agreements built on said marriage are nullified. He turned to Cole. You've brought shame to your pack, Alpha Hartfield. The council will be reviewing your other territorial claims. Consider your standing diminished. Griffin was beside Violet in an instant, steadying her. You did it, he said, wonder in his voice. You actually did it. I did. Violet agreed. Then her legs gave out. Griffin caught her, lifting her into his arms. I've got you. Ivy appeared on Violet's other side, tears streaming down her face. That was the most terrifying and amazing thing I've ever seen. As Griffin carried Violet away from the clearing, she caught sight of her parents in the crowd. Theodore looked stricken. Claire was crying, but smiling. Violet managed a small wave before exhaustion claimed her. Later, in the pack house where Griffin's healer tended her injuries, Violet lay on a medical cot, feeling every bruise and cut. Griffin sat beside her, holding her hand. I'm free, Violet said, marveling at the words. Actually, legally free. You are, Griffin confirmed. And you fought like a warrior to get it. I had a good teacher. You had the strength all along. I just helped you remember it. Violet turned to face him fully. His honey-colored eyes were warm with pride and something deeper. She thought of everything he had done for her. The midnight chocolate, the patient training Griffin watched her stance settle into something old and remembered. That weight shift. Who taught you that? Marcus Brennan, Violet said, breath fogging in the cold. He used to make me shadow box in the community center after everyone left. Said a beta's best weapon was timing. Good, Griffin replied, circling. Then we're not teaching. You're retrieving. And piece by piece, her body remembered what grief had buried. The way he had stood between her and Cole without hesitation. The way he made her laugh when she wanted to cry. The way he had waited, respecting her healing process, even when his wolf recognized her as mate. Griffin, she said softly. Yeah, thank you. For everything. For seeing me when I couldn't see myself. He smiled, the dimple appearing in his chin. Always. Violet leaned forward slowly, giving him time to understand her intention. When their lips met, it was gentle at first, tentative. Then Griffin's hand came up to cup her face, and the kiss deepened. It tasted like freedom, like possibility, like home. When they finally pulled apart, Griffin rested his forehead against hers. Was that okay? More than okay, Violet assured him. It was perfect. Outside, the sun set over Riverbend territory, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Violet was bruised, exhausted, and legally free for the first time in months, and she was exactly where she belonged. Chapter 7. Moon's Blessing. 1 month after the dissolution duel, Violet woke in Griffin's pack house to sunlight streaming through windows she had chosen the curtains for. The room smelled of cedar, and the faint trace of Griffin's scent from where he had sat beside her bed the night before, talking until she fell asleep. They had maintained careful boundaries even as their connection deepened. Griffin never pushed, never assumed. He waited for her to be ready. Violet stretched, feeling her muscles respond without the lingering pain that had plagued her for weeks after the fight with Cole. Her wolf stirred contentedly beneath her skin, no longer the fractured, frightened creature that had nearly consumed her humanity. Healing had come slowly, but it had come. She found Griffin in the pack house kitchen, attempting to cook breakfast while Nathan tried to save the bacon from burning. I'm an alpha, Griffin was saying, waving a spatula. I should be able to handle basic cooking. You're an alpha who once set water on fire. Nathan countered, rescuing the pan. Stick to what you're good at, like leadership, and not dying of food poisoning. Violet laughed from the doorway. Both men turned, and Griffin's face lit up in a way that made her heart flutter. "Morning," he said, abandoning the stove entirely to move toward her. "How'd you sleep?" "Better than I have in months." It was true. The nightmares had faded. The panic attacks had become rare. Violet had started a rehabilitation program at the pack house for shifters dealing with trauma, using her own experience to help others navigate the difficult path between breaking and healing. The work gave her purpose beyond her own recovery. "I have something to show you," Griffin said, after they'd eaten the breakfast Nathan had salvaged. "If you're up for a walk." They hiked to the eastern boundary where the reforestation project had transformed bare earth into a thriving young forest. Saplings stood tall now, their roots taking hold. The land that had been damaged was becoming whole again. "This is where it started," Griffin said, standing among the trees they had planted together. "You were so broken when you first came here. I watched you plant these trees with hands that shook, and I saw you get stronger with every hole you dug. You helped me see I could be more than what Cole and my father made me believe," Violet said softly. Griffin turned to face her fully. "Violet, I've waited because you needed time. I've respected your boundaries because you deserved the space to heal. But my wolf has known since that first night in my territory. You're my mate, my true mate. And if you're ready, if you want this, I want to make it official." Violet's breath caught. The claiming ritual was sacred, permanent, binding two souls under the moon goddess's witness. It wasn't something to enter lightly. "I want this," she said, the words coming easier than she expected. "I want you. Not because I need rescuing or because I'm afraid of being alone. Because you make me laugh when I want to cry. Because you see me. Really see me. Because when I'm with you, I feel like I've finally come home." Griffin's smile was radiant. "The full moon is in 3 days. We can do the ritual then, if you're certain." "I'm certain." The claiming ritual required preparation. Violet spent 2 days with the pack's elders learning the traditional words, understanding what the bond would mean. She would become Luna of Riverbend. But more than that, she would become Griffin's mate in the eyes of the moon goddess and all shifter law. On the night before the ritual, Eliza Hartfield appeared at the pack house demanding to speak with the council. "My son's loss of status has damaged Silverpine's standing," Eliza said coldly when the regional council assembled. "The dissolution was based on false testimony." Violet manipulated the council with emotional appeals while ignoring Cole's legitimate rights as her legal husband. Griffin stood beside Violet, his hand finding hers. The council witnessed the duel. They heard the testimony. Cole's deception was exposed by his own actions. "Nevertheless, I'm petitioning for a review," Eliza continued. "And I'm formally objecting to any mate bond between Violet Hayes and Alpha Westbrook. Such a union would be built on the ruins of my son's marriage." Alpha Morrison, who had presided over the duel, leaned forward. "Mrs. Hartfield, your son married Violet under false pretenses while carrying on an affair with her sister. He maintained the marriage for political gain after demanding separation. The council found his actions dishonorable. There are no grounds for review." "Then let me speak plainly," Eliza said, her gaze shifting to Violet. "I knew about the affair. I knew Cole was sleeping with Scarlett before the wedding. I said nothing because I believed it would force the marriage to fail, giving my son an excuse to dissolve it and marry someone more suitable." The admission hung in the air. Violet felt Griffin's hand tighten around hers. "You knew," Violet said quietly. "That's why you were so hostile from the beginning. You wanted me to fail. I wanted my son to have a Luna worthy of his station," Eliza said. "You were always going to be temporary. I simply hoped you would realize it faster. Your son got exactly the Luna he deserved," Griffin said, his voice carrying alpha command. "A manipulative opportunist who lied about a pregnancy to keep his attention. Meanwhile, Violet has shown more honor and strength than Cole could ever understand." Morrison stood. "Mrs. Hartfield, your objection is noted and denied. The claiming ritual will proceed as scheduled. This council has spoken." After Eliza left, Violet felt surprisingly calm. The final piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. Eliza's hostility hadn't been about Violet's worth. It had been about protecting her son's ambition at any cost. "Are you okay?" Griffin asked once they were alone. "I'm better than okay," Violet said. "She doesn't get to define my value anymore." None of them do. The full moon rose over Riverbend territory in brilliant silver glory. The pack gathered in the clearing designated for sacred ceremonies, forming a circle around the ritual space. Violet wore a simple white dress, her long chestnut hair loose around her shoulders. Griffin stood waiting, dressed in traditional ceremonial clothing, his honey-colored eyes reflecting the moonlight. The pack elder began the ceremony with words older than memory. "We gather under the moon goddess's light to witness the bonding of two souls. Griffin Westbrook, Alpha of Riverbend, and Violet Hayes, do you come freely to this claiming?" "We do," they said in unison. "Then speak your truth." Griffin took Violet's hands. "I claim you as my mate, my Luna, my equal in all things. I vow to protect you, to honor you, to stand beside you in joy and in struggle. My wolf recognizes yours. My soul calls to yours. Before the moon goddess and this pack, I bind myself to you willingly." Violet's voice was steady despite the emotion flooding through her. "I accept your claim. I claim you as my mate, my alpha, my partner in all things. I vow to stand with you, to support you, to build a life beside you. My wolf recognizes yours. My soul calls to yours. Before the moon goddess and this pack, I bind myself to you willingly." The moment the words were spoken, Violet felt it, the mate bond snapping into place like a golden thread connecting her heart to Griffin's. It was nothing like the hollow farce with Cole. This was real, powerful, sacred. She could feel Griffin's emotions as clearly as her own. His love, his joy, his absolute certainty that she was his. The elder smiled. "Then by the moon goddess's blessing, I pronounce you mated. What the goddess has joined, let no one tear asunder." Griffin pulled Violet into his arms, and when they kissed, the pack erupted in celebration. The bond between them pulsed with shared happiness, and Violet felt her wolf rise to meet Griffin's in perfect harmony. Later, in Griffin's private quarters, they lay together beneath the moonlight streaming through the windows. The claiming was complete, the bond forged. Violet traced patterns on Griffin's chest, marveling at the certainty she felt. "I never thought I could feel this safe with someone," she admitted. "This scene, you never have to hide with me," Griffin promised. "Not ever." The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Theodore Hayes stood at the pack house door, looking older and more uncertain than Violet had ever seen him. "May I speak with you?" he asked when Violet answered. They sat in the garden, the early morning air crisp and clean. Theodore struggled to find words, his hands clenching and unclenching. "I've spent the last month thinking about what I said to you," he began finally. "About Catherine. About how I let a ghost steal my relationship with my living daughter. And I realized I've been a coward. Dad, please let me finish." Theodore's voice cracked. "You deserved a father who saw your value, who celebrated your strengths, who protected you instead of using you. I gave you none of that. I sacrificed you to fix my own regrets, and I almost destroyed you in the process." Violet felt tears burning behind her eyes. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I watched you fight Cole in that clearing, and I saw the woman you've become despite my failures. Because you deserve to know that your worth was never in question. Only my ability to see it." Theodore met her eyes. "I'm sorry, Violet, for all of it. And I understand if you can't forgive me." Violet was quiet for a long moment, feeling the weight of years of hurt and disappointment. But she also felt Griffin's presence through their new bond, steady and reassuring. She had built a life beyond her father's approval. His recognition of his failures didn't erase the damage, but it was a start. "I'm not ready to forgive you," Violet said honestly. "Not completely, but I'm willing to try rebuilding something. On my terms, with clear boundaries. I'll take that," Theodore said, relief flooding his expression. "Whatever you're willing to give, I'll take it." Griffin appeared in the garden doorway, and Violet felt his question through their bond. She nodded, and he came to sit beside her, his hand resting supportively on her shoulder. "This is my mate, Griffin Westbrook," Violet said, and the pride in her voice was unmistakable. "And this is my pack now. If you want to be part of my life, you'll need to respect that. Theodore extended his hand to Griffin. Thank you for seeing what I was too blind to recognize. For giving my daughter the support she deserved. Violet saved herself, Griffin said firmly. I just gave her space to do it. As her father left, Violet leaned into Griffin's embrace, feeling the bond between them warm and constant. She had lost so much over the past months, a marriage, her faith in her family, her sense of safety. But she had gained something infinitely more valuable. She had found herself. She had found her strength. And she had found a love that was real, chosen, and absolutely hers. Chapter 8. New Territory. 6 months after the claiming ritual, Violet stood at the podium in the Riverbend Community Center, addressing a room full of shifters who had come from 5 different packs to hear about the trauma rehabilitation program she had developed. Recovery isn't linear, Violet said, her voice steady and confident. Some days you'll feel strong. Other days, the weight of what happened will make it hard to breathe. Both are normal. Both are part of healing. She spoke from experience. The nightmares had faded but occasionally returned. The scars from her duel with Cole had healed but remained visible when she shifted. She had learned to wear them as evidence of survival rather than shame. After the presentation, pack members approached with questions and gratitude. A young female beta who had been rejected by her mate thanked Violet for making her feel less alone. An older wolf whose pack had been destroyed by rogues asked about joining the support groups Violet facilitated weekly. Griffin waited by the door, pride radiating through their mate bond. When the crowd finally dispersed, he wrapped an arm around her waist. You were amazing, he said, pressing a kiss to her temple. 5 packs represented today. Word is spreading about what you're building here. We're building, Violet corrected. I couldn't do any of this without the pack's support. Without yours. They walked back to the pack house together, their hands intertwined. The territory that had once been foreign now felt like home. Violet knew every trail, every landmark, every member of the pack by name. As Luna, she had responsibilities that extended beyond the rehabilitation program. She mediated disputes, organized community events, represented Riverbend at regional council meetings. The work fulfilled her in ways she hadn't known were possible. Nathan met them at the entrance, holding a tablet. Alpha, Luna, we've got confirmation. The regional council approved the sanctuary proposal. The land is officially ours. Violet felt joy surge through the mate bond as Griffin grinned. They approved it? All of it? Every acre. The designation goes into effect next month. The Wolf Sanctuary had been Violet's dream project since becoming Luna. A protected territory on the border where wild wolves could live safely, away from hunters and human development. Griffin had supported the idea immediately, helping her navigate the complex bureaucracy of land acquisition and environmental protection laws. We need to celebrate, Griffin said, pulling Violet close. This is huge. Later that evening, the pack gathered for an impromptu celebration. Ivy appeared with champagne she had apparently been saving for exactly this occasion. To the Luna who makes things happen, Ivy said, raising her glass. And to my best friend, who never stopped fighting for what matters. Violet hugged Ivy tightly. Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I'd given up on myself. That's what family does, Ivy said. She had been formally named Beta Female of Riverbend 3 months ago, a position she filled with the same fierce loyalty she had always shown Violet. Besides, someone had to keep you from making terrible decisions. It's practically a full-time job. The celebration continued into the night. Pack members congratulated Violet, shared stories about wildlife they hoped the sanctuary would protect, and made plans for the dedication ceremony. Griffin stood beside her throughout, his hand never straying far from hers, his presence a constant source of strength. As the crowd thinned, Violet noticed an envelope that had been left on the gift table. Her name was written in familiar, shaky handwriting. She opened it to find a letter from Scarlett. The writing was stilted, clearly composed with help from a counselor. Scarlett wrote about the rehabilitation facility where she had been living for the past 4 months, working through alcohol dependency and the self-image issues that had driven so many of her destructive choices. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't make excuses. She simply acknowledged the damage she had caused and expressed hope that someday They might find a way to be sisters again. Violet folded the letter carefully. She wasn't ready to forgive Scarlet. Maybe she never would be. But she could acknowledge that her sister was trying to change, to become better than the person who had destroyed a wedding dress out of spite and jealousy. She wrote a brief response that night. "I'm glad you're getting help. I hope you find peace. That's all I can offer right now." It was honest. It was enough. 2 days later, Cole appeared at the border of Riverbend territory. He requested a formal audience with the Alpha and Luna, following proper protocol for once. Griffin wanted to refuse, but Violet agreed to meet him with Nathan present as witness. They met in a neutral clearing. Cole looked diminished somehow, his confidence stripped away. News had spread about how he had lost half his territory to a rival pack after the regional council's investigation exposed years of shady political maneuvering. The Silver Pine pack that had once seemed so powerful was now struggling to maintain relevance. "I came to apologize," Cole said without preamble, "for everything. For using you, for the affair with your sister, for trying to force you back after the separation. You deserved better." Violet studied the man who had once held so much power over her life. She felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, not even pity. Just a distant recognition that he was someone who had briefly been part of her story, but no longer mattered. "I don't forgive you," Violet said calmly. "And I don't hate you either. I just don't think about you anymore. You're part of a past I've moved beyond." Cole flinched. "I understand. I just wanted you to know that I see now what I lost, what I threw away. You didn't lose me, Cole. You never had me. You had a transaction, a political arrangement. That's all it ever was." After Cole left, Griffin pulled Violet into his arms. "You okay?" "Better than okay," Violet said, meaning it. "He doesn't get to live in my head anymore. He doesn't get any space in my life at all." The next afternoon brought a visit from Theodore and Claire. They had been coming regularly since the claiming, slowly rebuilding their relationship with Violet on her terms. The progress was gradual, but real. Theodore had started therapy to work through his grief over Catherine. Claire had become more assertive, no longer allowing her husband to dictate family dynamics. They sat in the garden behind the pack house, drinking tea while Griffin tactfully gave them privacy. "Your mother and I wanted to tell you in person," Theodore said. "We're selling the house, moving to a smaller place closer to your mother's sister in the Northern Territories." "That's a big change," Violet said carefully. "It's time," Claire said, reaching for Violet's hand. "That house holds too many painful memories. Too many years of me being silent when I should have spoken up. We need a fresh start, and we wanted to give you this," Theodore said, sliding an envelope across the table. Inside was a check for a substantial amount. "Money from your grandmother's estate that should have gone to you years ago. We held on to it because I thought I knew better how to invest it. I was wrong. It's yours to use however you see fit." Violet stared at the check. The amount would fully fund the sanctuary for its first 3 years of operation. "This is too much. It's not nearly enough to make up for what we cost you," Theodore said. "But it's a start. Use it for the sanctuary. Your grandmother would have loved that." After her parents left, Violet sat in the garden for a long time, processing. The relationship with her father would never be what it should have been. Too much damage had been done, but they were finding a way forward that was honest, even if it wasn't close. That was enough. The sanctuary dedication ceremony took place on a brilliant autumn day, the forest ablaze with gold and crimson. Regional council members attended, along with representatives from conservation groups and packs from across 3 territories. Violet stood beside Griffin at the entrance to the protected land. A ribbon stretched across the trail that led into the sanctuary. Griffin addressed the crowd first, speaking about the importance of preserving wild spaces and protecting the wolves who shared their nature. Then he turned to Violet. "My Luna has shown me that strength isn't just about fighting. It's about healing. It's about taking something broken and making it whole again. This sanctuary represents that vision, a place where what was once threatened can now flourish. It's my honor to give her the stage." Violet stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly across the assembled crowd. 6 months ago, I stood in this forest, broken and lost, convinced I had no value. Today, I stand here as Luna of Riverbend, as the founder of this sanctuary, as proof that our worst moments don't define us. They refine us. They show us what we're capable of surviving and what we're capable of building from the ruins. She took the scissors from Nathan and cut the ribbon. The Hayes Westbrook Wildlife Sanctuary is officially open. Applause erupted. Griffin pulled her into a kiss that made the crowd cheer louder. Through their bond, Violet felt his absolute joy, his pride, his unwavering love. As the crowd dispersed to tour the sanctuary trails, Griffin and Violet walked to the highest point of the protected land. Below them, forest stretched in every direction, wild and beautiful and safe. "I keep thinking about that wedding dress," Violet said quietly, "the one Scarlet destroyed. At the time it felt like the worst thing that could happen, like an omen of everything that would go wrong. And now?" Griffin asked, his arm around her waist. "Now I think maybe it was exactly what needed to happen. That dress was for a marriage built on lies. I needed it destroyed so I could find my way to something real." Griffin turned her to face him, his honey-colored eyes warm with love. "You found your way to yourself. I just had the good fortune to be in your path when you did. Best trespassing incident of my life," Violet said, making him laugh. They stood together, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. Below, wolves moved through the sanctuary, already claiming it as their home. Ivy was giving a tour to visiting council members. Nathan was coordinating with rangers about patrol schedules. The pack was thriving, and Violet was part of it. She had lost so much over the past year. A marriage, her faith in her family, her sense of safety, but she had gained infinitely more. She had found her strength, her purpose, her true mate. She had learned that being broken wasn't the same as being defeated, that healing was possible, that she deserved love that was real and chosen and absolutely hers. Griffin's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining as naturally as breathing. Through their bond, she felt his contentment, his certainty that they were exactly where they belonged. The future stretched before them, full of possibility and promise, and Violet was ready for all of it.